Joining me right now to talk about an issue down in Austin that could affect gun owners if the issue is actually brought up in the Senate and in the House. We're visiting with Derek Wills of Lone Star Gun Rights. Derek, good morning. How are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic, Chad. I'm glad to be here.
Well, glad to have you on the show today. Y'all are advocating for constitutional carry, correct?
Yes, sir.
Tell our listeners about constitutional carry, what you're advocating for, and the piece of legislation that y'all have gotten behind down in Austin.
Well, we're pushing for Jonathan Stickland's bill that he has authored back in November. It's HB 375. It is known as the Constitutional Carry Act of 2017. And what it does is it says that if you are legally allowed to possess a firearm, you have the right to carry it in Texas. You don't need to go get an LTC. You don't need to seek permission from the state of Texas and pay an atrociously large tax on it in order to exercise your Second Amendment rights. And that's the bill that we are fully behind, and we're pushing hard for it.
We've seen nationally, New Hampshire being the latest, but there are other states that have constitutional carry, and there have been some movements in other states to push towards constitutional carry. You know, one thing in Texas is that, you know, we just got open carry through. Is there any momentum in Austin with lawmakers behind constitutional carry right now, in your opinion?
There is. Last session, we didn't get a hearing at all for constitutional carry. It was filed, but the focus was more on licensed open carry. This session, we've already been assured by Representative Phil King, who is the chairman of the Homeland Security and Public Safety Committee, who is responsible for scheduling all bills for hearings. He has already assured Representative John Stickland that his bill, HB 375, will get a hearing this session. And I just found out that after the first meeting that they just had, that he is going to schedule hearings for all gun bills once they are all filed and submitted to committee. But once we do that, we are also working with other legislators for getting it pushed further once it comes out of committee. Because getting it out of committee is our first big step, and it is a big step. But we are also ramping up to get support on the floor should, say, Speaker Strauss move to table it. There are procedures that we have we're working on to overrule the ruling of the chair to ensure that it does come up for a vote if it does get to the floor.
Is constitutional carry something that the NRA, and I've heard both ways, that the NRA would love to see constitutional carry, and I've heard that the NRA really doesn't care about constitutional carry. What's the real answer when it comes to constitutional carry in the NRA?
I can't speak for the NRA. I know what I've seen, and at least from an aesthetics perspective, it doesn't seem like the NRA is fully, or at least as fully behind constitutional carry as, say, Lone Star Gun Rights is. We have, we're actively pushing for it, and, the NRA isn't, if that makes sense.
Right. I think there are, I hear arguments on both sides as far as constitutional carry goes. I think a lot of the arguments against constitutional carry fall into the emotional arguments. Now everyone's going to have a gun, and all the bad guys are going to have guns. I think that falls into it. But let me throw a couple of the questions that I've heard people bring up about constitutional carry, and maybe reasons why not to have it. I just want to get your opinions on them. One of the reasons that we hear is, okay, well, if you go and take the class, you get a license to carry. You at least have to show that you know how to shoot a gun, that you can hit a target, that you are at least somewhat educated on gun laws, and that when you get that card, you basically acknowledge, you've gone through the class, you've gone through, you have the education, to have a firearm, you're now responsible for that. With constitutional carry, you wouldn't have to go through any of that. So what would, and that's one of the things that I hear from people is, well, at least we know those who have a license to carry, they're proficient. What about everybody else? Is that something that people need to be worried about in your mind? How do you battle that perception?
I don't think it's an issue at all. Any first-time gun buyer, at least the vast majority of them, even if they are intimidated, they're going to seek out guidance with somebody that they know and trust. And if they don't happen to know anybody, then they're going to seek out classes on their own. You can see it if you go to any gun range. They offer classes from beginner shooting that have nothing to do with LTC or anything like that.
Sure.
They offer beginner classes for how to shoot, how to maintain your gun, all the way up to advanced tactical classes. And obviously that depends on the range, but I mean, the education is there and available for people. Mm-hmm. And if something like that wasn't being utilized, ranges wouldn't offer it. So, I mean, that's kind of capitalism 101. Nobody's going to offer a service that there's no demand for.
So it puts more responsibility on the gun owner.
Absolutely. And, whenever somebody carries, it is a big responsibility.
Yeah.
Nobody carries without the understanding that I have the ability to defend myself, but if something goes wrong, I'm responsible for every round that leaves my muzzle. And I don't think anybody will begin to carry, but LTC or no LTC, I don't think anybody will actually begin to carry without having that come to Jesus moment and saying, I'm responsible for what happens with this. There are no excuses. And so that mindset, just by putting a weapon in a holster, that's going to be enough, I believe, to cause people to either feel that, yes, I am perfectly comfortable with that, or maybe I should reach out to somebody else and get some more training.
Visiting with Derek Wills of Lone Star Gun Rights, talking about constitutional carry, the organization Lone Star Gun Rights backing Jonathan Stickland's bill on constitutional carry. Let me ask you this. If a police officer pulls over somebody, that person has a license to carry, that person says, hey, officer, just to let you know, I have a license to carry, do have a gun with me. In my opinion, that makes the officer maybe, I'm not a police officer, but I would think it would make the police officer go, okay, this is a overall responsible citizen. It may de-escalate any type of situation. Is there any fear that constitutional carry would change that relationship between gun owners and police, where if a police officer pulls you over and they know you have a gun or they see that you have a gun, there might not be that de-escalation because they don't know if you are, background checked, FBI is, checked in on you, everything else. What do you think on that?
I don't see any reason for police to worry. There's a lot more than just a visual of seeing a holstered handgun. If you pull somebody over and say constitutional carry is enacted, and you just give them the courtesy heads up, hey, I just want you to know that I have a firearm on my hip, that should be enough. Mm-hmm. If somebody wanted to cause harm to a police officer, they surely would not make it known right up front.
Right.
They would have mannerisms that would be suspicious, et cetera. So nothing along those lines would change. Anybody that's legally carrying would probably be able to give the courtesy of saying, hey, I just want you to know that I'm carrying. And even if they didn't, I'm sure that their other mannerisms wouldn't be a cause for alarm.
Sure. All right. Derek, Lone Star Gun Rights, backing constitutional carry. Again, those are a couple of questions that I've just heard from folks that are concerned about constitutional carry, and I think you hit the nail on the head on those. And how can folks, if they want to keep up with this bill, if they want to get in touch with Lone Star Gun Rights, how can they do so?
We're very active on Facebook. You can just look us up at Lone Star Gun Rights, and our website is lonestargr.com. That's lonestargr.com. On our website, we have a legislation tracker that we keep up to date with all of the legislation that we support and oppose that has to do with gun rights in Texas. And we're constantly updating that. We are pushing so much content on our Facebook page, just trying to make sure that everybody is as informed as possible. So we highly recommend that anybody out there that cares about their gun rights in Texas, follow us on Facebook. We're also on Twitter, and, hit up our website as well.
Yeah, very good. Derek, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.